The call of Abram, Genesis 11, verses 26 to chapter 13, verse 2. You will notice in this story that I have to read a part from chapter 12 before I can read the last part of chapter 11. That's because the events in chapter 12 come before the events in the end of chapter 11. After the Tower of Babel, God scattered the people and let them follow their own path. For a long time he was silent, sending no prophets or revelations, but he did not forget his promise to send a Redeemer. From whom would he send the Redeemer? From Job, who would come a little later? From Melchizedek? No, the Lord chose from the line of Shem. Noah had given blessings and curses to his 3 sons, and Shem had received the greatest blessings. You can read about that in Genesis 9. From the line of Shem came Terah. Terah would have lived for about 50 years, overlapping Noah's life. So for about 50 years, he could have known his great-great-grandfather, maybe 4 or 5 generations earlier, and he could have known all about the Lord. But instead, we find out in Joshua 24 that he served idols. Terah had 3 sons. When Terah had lived 70 years, he fathered Abram, Nahor, and Haran. Abram, Nahor, and Haran. Now these are the generations of Terah. Terah fathered Abram, Nahor, and Haran fathered Lot. Haran died in the presence of his father Terah in the land of his kindred, in Ur of the Chaldeans. So Haran lived earlier than he died earlier than his 2 brothers. And Abram and Nahor took wives. The name of Abram's wife was Sarai, and she was his half-sister. She was from another mother. And the name of Nahor's wife, Milcah, the daughter of Haran, the father of Milcah and Iscah. Milcah was a niece of Nahor, and they got married. Now the Lord said to Abram, "Go from your country and your kindred and your father's house to the land that I will show you. And I will make of you a great nation, and I will bless you and make your name great, so that you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and him who dishonors you I will curse, and in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed." So the Lord wasn't telling Abram where he was going, just that it would be a land he would be shown. And look at what Abram had to leave. He had to leave not only his country, but also all his relatives, and even his close relatives in his father's house. And the Lord told him these 3 blessings that he would give him, and the Lord graciously kept repeating these blessings to reassure Abram that they were indeed true. One of the 3 that were always repeated afterwards was that the Lord would give him a land, so that would be the promised land, Canaan, and also that he would be a huge multitude. He would be a great nation with many descendants. And thirdly, that through him all the families of the earth would be blessed, because through the line of Abram would come the Savior. Now Sarai was barren, she had no child. And this makes it all the more marvelous that the Lord was going to give them many descendants, because she was 65 at this time, and it did not seem possible to human eyes. Terah took Abram his son and Lot the son of Haran his grandson, and Sarai his daughter-in-law, his son Abram's wife, and they went forth together from Ur of the Chaldeans to go into the land of Canaan. But when they came to Haran, they settled there. The days of Terah were 205 years, and Terah died in Haran. Even though Abram was specifically called by the Lord to leave, it reads here that Terah also went. And of course, Sarah went, and then his nephew Lot also went. So the four of them set out, and they didn't go across this Arabian desert. Instead, they followed the Euphrates River up until they came to Haran. In Hebrew, Haran, this place, was spelled differently than the Haran that was Terah's son, Abram's brother. It sounds like they maybe were just waiting in Haran. Maybe Terah was ill, and so they just stayed there until Terah died. But it doesn't say that the Lord commanded them to stop here. But maybe Abram was just being respectful to his dad. Now that Terah died, then Abram set out again. So Abram went as the Lord had told him, and Lot went with him. Abram was 75 years old when he departed from Haran. And Abram took Sarai his wife, and Lot his brother's son, and all their possessions that they had gathered, and the people that they had acquired in Haran, and they set out to go to the land of Canaan. It sounds like they were a very large company. Abram traveled through the land as far as the site of the great tree of Moreh at Shechem. At that time, the Canaanites were in the land. We know that the Canaanites were very wicked, and yet Abram was safely brought to the very middle. The Lord protected him there, and he went to a tree there, and that was where pagans like to worship. So they must have been very much shocked to see this stranger, this foreigner, build an altar there that we will find out in the next verse. He builds an altar there, and not even to a visible idol. So that must have very, very much confused the people of Canaan. Then the Lord appeared to Abram there in Shechem and said, "To your offspring I will give this land." Already the Lord was repeating the promise of giving him land, and that was to reassure Abram. So he built there an altar to the Lord who had appeared to him. From there he moved to the hill country on the east of Bethel and pitched his tent, with Bethel on the west and Ai on the east. And there he built an altar to the Lord and called upon the name of the Lord. So already Abram wasn't even in Canaan for very long, and already he had put up 2 altars to commemorate that he loved the Lord and that he wanted to worship the Lord. And Abram journeyed on, still going toward the Negev. It sounds like he's still exploring this land that the Lord had promised to give him. Now there was a famine in the land, so Abram went down to Egypt to sojourn there, for the famine was severe in the land. The land of Egypt must have seemed like a good place to go because it had the Nile, so then there would be a guaranteed water source for all the many flocks and animals that Abram had. When he was about to enter Egypt, he said to Sarai his wife, "I know that you are a woman beautiful in appearance, and when the Egyptians see you, they will say, 'This is his wife.' Then they will kill me, but they will let you live." So the Egyptians sounded like they had a reputation maybe of just killing for whatever woman they wanted. So Abram told her his plan. He said, "Say you are my sister, that it may go well with me because of you, and that my life may be spared for your sake." This was partly a lie because, yes, she was his sister, but she was his wife also, and she was his half sister, not a full sister. But he was trying to protect himself. Instead of letting the Lord protect him, he was coming up with this man made plan that wasn't very loving because he wasn't protecting his wife this way. When Abram entered Egypt, the Egyptians saw that the woman was very beautiful. And when the princes of Pharaoh saw her, they praised her to Pharaoh, and the woman was taken into Pharaoh's house. And for her sake he dealt well with Abram, and he had sheep, oxen, male donkeys, male servants, female donkeys, and camels. So Abram with Lot, they had everything their heart could desire, but Abram didn't have his wife anymore. Pharaoh had her. But the Lord afflicted Pharaoh and his house with great plagues because of Sarai, Abram's wife. Looks like this could be a doctor trying to figure out what's wrong with these people in Pharaoh's house. So Pharaoh called Abram and said, "What is this you have done to me?" Pharaoh must have put two and two together, or maybe the Lord gave him a vision or helped him to understand that it was Sarai that was causing all of this plague, that the fact that he had Sarai. So this pagan, this unbeliever, has to give a believer a tongue lashing, and a well-deserved one at that. He said to Abram, "Why did you not tell me that she was your wife? Why did you say, 'She is my sister,' so that I took her for my wife? Now then, here is your wife, take her and go." And Pharaoh gave men orders concerning him, and they sent him away with his wife and all that he had. We see that God was extremely gracious to Abram because Pharaoh could have been that angry that he would kill Abram for lying or even throw him in jail. But instead, he allowed Abram to go away freely, and not only that, but he gave him even more riches. So Abram should have been a very happy and thankful man because he had his wife back, plus he was let off the hook with just a very sound scolding. This also shows how seriously the Lord took his promise because Satan was almost victorious, that he could have maybe uh, taken Sarai away so that the Lord's promise of them having a huge multitude of people and the Savior being born from their line, that promise could not have been fulfilled. But of course, the Lord would never allow Satan to win.